Yo, so I came back to do like a part 2 to the first video I made about do share prices really matter? Because not long after, like the next day, I kept thinking of things that I could have said in the first video to make it more complete. It's kind of like you have a conversation with somebody or an argument, and a while after you think of things like, why I didn't think of that then? That would have been the nail in the coffin. But anyway, so I decided just to make a second video and just go from there. So about pertaining to share prices, to the person who was like I was, who was fixated on share prices, in general, they're not advantageous. It's not like you're going to benefit more from buying whole shares as opposed to the person who buys fractional shares. Because they, like I said in the first video, they don't matter much other than when you buy a stock or an ETF, you buy a whole share. The only real advantage, which to me is not really an advantage, is that you capture the full dividend that comes with that share. So for instance, you may have like let's say a dividend ETF. And for one share, for every share, you're gonna get an annual dividend of $1.25. When you buy the whole share, you get that whole dividend. If you buy a fractional share, you get a fractional dividend. So let's say you'll get whatever half of 125 is, which I want to say is what, 60 plus cents. If you buy a half share of a dividend ETF that pays 125 a year, then you're going to get somewhere around 60 cents if you buy half a share. So that's the only advantage. Outside of that, there's no true advantage. This was really made with the person in mind who can't get past the thought of not buying in whole shares, especially if you're operating on a limited budget like I am. So it's like me talking to my younger self with a greater awareness of how this thing works. So let's say, for instance, the S&P 500, we're going to go at VOO. Right now, one share of that it's up there. I want to say it's close to 600. I know for a fact SPY, which is State Street's S&P 500 ETF, that's over $600. So for a person who's operating on a limited budget and they only want to buy in whole shares, that's gonna be tough to do. You know what I mean? So for that person, the budget conscious person, I would say, since you're stuck on buying whole shares, I would go with a budget conscious, a budget friendly ETF. SWA is great when it comes to their ETFs and share prices. If you judge the cost of an ETF based on the share price, then I would say Charles Schwab ETFs are the best, because they normally, you see them between like $20 and $30 a share. So if you really are stuck on buying whole shares, then I would go with them. But like I said, it's really no advantage because the rate of return is going to be the same whether you buy for $20 a share or $500 a share. It's not like if you buy a whole share of VOO SPY, it's not like you're going to get a higher rate of return because the share price is so much greater. No. And this goes back to the fractional share buying. Buying fractional shares versus whole shares, there's no advantage. Because like I said, if you buy half a share of VOO versus a whole share, the rate of return is going to be the same. Let's say in 1 year that ETF grows by 26%. The person who bought a whole share, their rate of return, their money won't grow faster than the person who bought a fractional share. They're both going to grow they both will have appreciated in that 1 year by 26%, whether you bought $600 worth or whether you only bought $6 worth. 26% on $6, I don't know what it is, but it's still 26%. 26% on $600, I don't know what it is, but it's still 26%. It'll only look like the person who bought the whole share, it'll only look like their investment grew faster because they bought more of it than the person who bought a fractional share. So my next point, which would be my last point, is this. If you're trying to ball on a budget, I would go with Schwab, and I'm trying to put this in the best way possible so that it can make sense without this video being too long. You can look at the share, like let's say for instance, SPY. The share price is very high. But like the old saying goes, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. You don't eat it all in one sitting. It's impossible. In this case, if you're balling on a budget, it'll be near impossible to buy that whole share every time or every time you get paid. So the best way to make that share price of that ETF more affordable for the budget conscious investor like me is to dollar cost average. You buy this, you invest, say you get paid twice a month, every 2 weeks. You take some money, taking a certain amount every paycheck, and break that share price down. Or in this case, you eat that elephant. With each investment, you're going to take one bite out of that elephant until you ate the whole elephant. Or in this case, until you bought one full share. That's how you make it affordable. It's just like chopping down a tree. You can't, if you got an axe, you're trying to chop down a tree, you're not going to chop it down in one swing. It's going to take a bunch of swings before that tree finally comes down. So it just takes patience, a lot of planning, a lot of tweaking and kind of revising that plan and having a long-term mindset. So some takeaways: share prices, buying whole shares is not more advantageous than buying fractional shares. The reason why I still like to buy whole shares, I don't buy Vanguard stuff because I don't got that much money to be buying whole shares every time. The reason why I prefer buying I still like to buy whole shares, I don't prefer it, is because it gives me that sense of ownership. For the longest, even as a kid, I always wanted to say, man, I own this asset outright. I have full ownership of this. So it's kind of like a realized dream of mine. But is it more beneficial or advantageous? It's not. So I just wanted to make this, in addition to the first video, to help somebody kind of get unstuck and see that there's no real advantage to be had. Fractional shares are just as good as buying whole shares because you're still investing. And I mean that return on investment is going to be the same no matter what. If you invested $1 versus if you invested $100. I heard one person who I like to watch say he advised against buying fractional shares, but he don't explain it other than you get a piece of a piece, but it's still a piece. Even if you buy whole shares, it's a bigger piece, but it's still a piece. So invest, be consistent with it, keep your emotions out of it, have a plan, stick to the plan, plan your work your plan. As long as you invest and stay invested, you'll be all right. And remember this, you know what I mean? Mentality is the womb of life. If you can see it here, you can see it out here. Y'all be blessed. Be safe. Peace.